Welcome to Rauta's mid-July video about the best of first half of 2020. Now this is a video some people have actually requested and hoped for, so I hope to answer your questions. And some people just couldn't care less. Like, I mean, why to recap the first half when all those reviews are out there and this is just one guy telling his opinion? But because it seems like some people are rather interested in videos like this, that is listing the best ones, because it's not like most people have the time or will to go through all the reviews. They just want to get the kind of a pearls picked up for them so they can easily sort it out, listen to them and just figure out if these recommendations are of any good use for them. So with this video I tried to recap the first half of 2020, giving you a little bit of small remarks about those albums, a little bit commentating, but leaving the actual reviews as it is. So I mean, makes no sense to for me to recap them fully or even shorter version. So just here to say a few words about each album I have listed here. I will have them linked in the description box, so you will get to see it, and I hope that I won't be forgetting anything, but let's see how it goes. Obviously, I still haven't heard all the possible albums of the first half of the year. That's kind of an impossible task, and probably there are still albums in my backlog which need to be listened to, and they couldn't make this list because I'm bombarded by lots of albums all the time. But anyway, here it goes, and to celebrate this kind of a video comeback, because I mean I used to do them in earlier years, but I kind of gave up because I don't know if that was actually necessary. Anyway, this time I'm gonna drink some stout. This is oatmeal imperial stout, so it's gonna hit me hard by the time I'm actually finished with this one, but let's see if I even have the time to give this a little bit of a taste while going through the list. I actually have the list here right with me, so I'm just gonna stare at the list more than actual camera. These are not in any particular order, because I mean I've been listing these for myself to kind of have these kind of a memo kind of a list for myself when the year actually is going to end, so I will actually remember the stuff that came earlier. So I'm here just to recap, and make no mistake, I'm trying to pay attention to each of them at least a little bit. So I'll start with a weird order, so don't mind that. Now first in this list is Toulouse Old Death from Norway, delivering their kind of a groovy mid-tempo kind of a twisted black metal. I mean, people who were before fans of Toulouse and bands like Cold, they pretty much know what to expect, and as such this won't be a surprise title. It's nothing spectacular or mind-blowing, but it's kind of a strong in its own genre, and I think still definitely worth checking that out. And in case you just happen to like it and you find that album interesting or the band interesting and you have previously missed it, there's an interview I already done with the band, so that would be the first one on this list. The next one would be Thy Dying Light, which then again a little bit different, coming from more like fast tempo, very sinister kind of black metal, which leans very much to 1990s Norwegian black metal as well, but quite different from the style of Toulouse. And as such, one could even say it's kind of a retro-ish feeling. I mean, it's prettiest way of doing this kind of Norwegian sounding stuff. Very much like 2020, but still almost like taking you back to the 90s. A strong album, even though a little bit maybe too lengthy. Now one of the albums that came... Wow, this is strong and tasty beer, by the way. Now one of the albums that barely made to this list, because I got the CD only a few days before actually making this video, is Testament, Titans of Creation. I don't even know if that review video will be out before this video, so in case not, it will be out soon after. But anyway, these thrash metal veterans from Bay Area, San Francisco, Oakland area basically, have been there from like early in the 80s, and I guess everybody just knows the band. And to be honest, I never been a big fan of Testament, so I was very, very positively surprised when I found out that this new album, lasting almost 60 minutes, still kicks ass so much, and I think these guys have done one of their best albums of at least their modern days. So very much a thrash metal album I was kind of hoping for to be. Then we go back to Norway with Svarttjern. Shame is just a word. What a stupid title for a strong album. I mean, the title still rings in my head in a way that it's got to be one of the most stupid title for a black metal album anyway. But I don't know. I've liked Svarttjern before. They're very much like 1990s second wave black metal, so kind of a very typical band coming from Norway and not actually reinventing the wheel. Not exactly inventing anything but a stupid title, but despite all that, a strong album with very traditional Norwegian sounding black metal. Something that you might be interested to check out if you are one of those 1990s Norwegian black metal fans. From that, we'll continue with black metal, but this time in Germany, going band with Slagmark. There's another band with the same name, but this one is the German one with the debut album called Purging Sacred Souls. Also fast tempo, rather raw sounding, and even somewhat melodic black metal. And it's a debut album that kind of reminds me of Satanic War Master. So definitely something more Finnish in that style rather than being kind of Norwegian style. A positive surprise for real, but then again, these guys are no newbies. We're band members from bands such as Sacrista and like. So check it out. And one of the positive surprises also comes from France. It's called Regarde Hommes. I don't know how to pronounce it. With the album called Ascension. And they are the kind of a modern black metal style. One could even say post-black metal style, because they're not exactly the most traditional band as such. And even though this is an album with lengthy songs, it's still a good one. And I think they have done their best album so far, in my opinion. An interesting band for sure, but before this, they were not the kind of A-grade band, in my opinion. I mean, they were always on the verge of, delivering a good album, and now they finally did it. Totally different breed is then again Smackbound with their 2020 album, which just happens to be the debut album title also, but not referring to the year we're living, but actually the eyesight thing. And this is kind of like modern heavy metal. It's melodic, it's kind of a hard rockish, it's moody, but it's also kind of aggressive and, well, kind of a perfect summer album, really. And this is a band made of veteran metal people from Finland, from bands like Verisaarna, Trey Stone, Run for Cover band, with the kind of a famous actress, vocalist, and stuff like that. I mean, it's a band with lots of talent, and now they have done a good debut album. Not definitely for typical extreme metal fan, but definitely worth checking out. That is, if you have a soft spot for heavy metal and hard rock. Then coming also from Finland is a band called Norrhem. Norrhem comes out with their album called Koitos, which is very, very melodic black metal, also with synths and kind of a folkish approach. Very much also like 1990s. Previously I've seen the band only on stage, and while they were definitely promising, not really that convincing. But now they are here with a good album, and even though the cover image is a little bit kind of a goofy, I think you should give it a shot, that is, if you're into melodic black metal. One of the weirdest albums, not in terms being weird as such, but the kind of odd ones, because it doesn't really fit most of what my music taste buds are all about, is this My Dying Bride album called The Ghost of Orion. Very, very dramatic, very bombastic, very well-balanced doom, going with the tradition, yet also very much of today. And this is an album without any solace. I think the only band I can actually compare this to would be Paradise Lost. Also an old-timer coming from early 90s. And they also made a good album this year, which I will tell you a little bit later on. But My Dying Bride, I mean, I have mostly missed their latest albums for so many reasons. And now that they kind of totally surprised me, like, you know, coming out of blue with a really strong album, it was nice to see that this age doesn't affect these guys at all. I think maybe they get even more charismatic with their music. So definitely a Get Your album for doom metal fans. Also from Finland comes a band called Mimorium with the Blood of Qayin. And this is also melodic, kind of a catchy black metal with very Finnish, Swedish style. And also strongly produced. Not the most phenomenal album maybe, but definitely something that you should check out if you're into melodic black metal. One of the newcomers to Finnish black metal scene, and I totally welcome these guys. From Sweden, there comes a band called Kvaen with the album called Funeral Pyre. And this is very much like traditional Swedish melodic black metal. Basically nothing new, but doesn't matter because the atmosphere is right there with the catchy songs and fitting production. Something that very early on this year totally got me like, hey, this is something good, this is something new, you should be checking out. So an interesting band. And then from Danish American background comes a band called Myrkri with the Drivende, dødens, æter. Raw sounding, fast tempo, somewhat melodic black metal with very strong 1990s feeling also. So you might all see the pattern here. Lots of bands going for the 1990s second wave black metal sound. And while there's nothing wrong with that, it's kind of funny that so many bands are tapping the old vein versus going for something new. Anyway, a good album that you should be checking out also. Well, this is technically a list that you should be checking out, so I don't know why I even bother saying that. Förgjord, Laulu, kuolemasta, song about death. That's also a Finnish black metal addition to this year. And Förgjord has been very, very active for the past few years. I mean, releasing basically something each year nowadays. And it's raw, melodic, very unapologetic black metal with kind of an original touch. While they have some really catchy parts and they're kind of like mainstream, their really lo-fi production is something that isn't suitable for everybody. And that's something which I really like because these guys are paving their own path rather than going for the tradition. So I think this is in so many ways kind of an exception to the other black metal ones on this list. An interesting album definitely for sure. Now, one of the good comeback albums of the year is from Armagedda from Sweden with the Svindeldjup, ättestup, which is kind of raw Swedish black metal, but also a little bit of a folkish touch. If you've heard the previous Armagedda album and if the other bands that these band members have been going on throughout the late years, you will pretty much know what to expect. Some people, it seems that this got them a little bit disappointed, but some were also praising that like this is one of the best albums of the year. And I kind of rather would choose their later choir. This is definitely a good comeback album from a band that I totally felt or thought that it's gone for good. So Armagedda is back, and that's a good thing. Another good strong comeback album comes from Finland with the Ocean's album Cosmic World Mother. Now with a strong new vocalist. This is very, very nice comeback album with synth-filled, melodic, fast tempo, kind of a catchy black metal, which is more on the symphonic side of things. And while so many bands are going for the 90s style, like I mentioned already, this is definitely one of these years. I wouldn't say not so much like a third wave black metal album, but doesn't really sound like what was going on in the 90s. So while these guys could easily pick up where they kind of left off, early 2000s, this is still very much of today, and I think Oceans is back for good with strong album and also doing great live. Then one more comes from Parts Unknown with an album called Akolyth, which is also the name of the band. And this is very, very raw, a little bit 90s, kind of a vibing, kind of a rough black metal that is definitely the kind of opposite of what bands like Oceans and other of those melodic, pure production albums is all about. Now this is interesting because this is kind of a vicious. It's raw, it's kind of a mystic because you don't know jack shit about the band, but it's there to just kind of deliver those death blows all over. An interesting band for sure because the layer of mysticism combined with good music is something that gives me the creeps in a good way. Then we move towards the best of the list actually. And this one is from Poland called Regarde. Also one of the late ones to join this list before the doors closing. And Solid in Madness is the name of this almost 30 minutes of an album, which is kind of an old school death metal meeting thrash. So technically just old school death metal, but very modern sound. And I think Regarde is just, picking up the pace. I mean, they had their slow years when their band was getting a little bit boring, and I kind of jumped off the wagon basically. But the last few years they have been really strong with Regarde. I don't know what is going on with these old farts, because it seems like they're just, making some of the best releases of all time just during last 5 years or so. So definitely an interesting album. Strong, powerful. Did I say strong? Alright, let's go to a different breed. And this one is Sorcerer from Sweden. One of those totally surprising titles, because this is like epic doom meeting traditional heavy metal, really powerful, beautiful vocalist doing stuff that is accompanied with these strong riffs, great production, and the feeling that is just overwhelming. A great doom heavy metal hybrid of sorts, which is definitely a band that everybody should be checking out in case they're for fans of like Candlemass and stuff. And then about the Paradise Lost album, Obsidian. In my opinion, the band is getting back to the ages and times when they were probably doing their best albums like in Requiem around 2007. Obsidian is now kind of letting that death metal thing go, which they had for a couple of albums like Medusa previously. But now they're going more back to the gothic style, picking more with the clean vocals and going back to the, kind of a tragic, gothic, doom, death, melodic hybrid, which is something that Paradise Lost is, the master of that all. Really great album, which it seems I can't get enough of that stuff. Really, really great. And then probably the most surprising title on this list would be One Desire, Midnight Empire. This is so sweet, so cheesy, that you get not only diabetes, but also kind of a cardiac arrest when you're listening to this. This is for old farts like me, because this takes me back to the 80s. When I was a kid, everything was innocent, the world was colorful. It was like Miami Vice, marrying Blondie, and all that stuff. Goofy clothes, colorful world, disco, cocaine. Everything was just, crazy in so many ways, and also music. Doesn't matter whether we are talking about death metal, black metal, thrash metal, or just, pop, rock, disco. And things were getting crazy. People were so much more creative than 90s, which was kind of like, very boring. Even though some of the best black metal ones or death metal ones came in the 90s. But that's not the point. The point here, this cheesiness and sweetness is something that is really, really enjoyable. Really catchy stuff, great vocalist, and the production that fits this one well. To be honest, I didn't expect to like this one so much. Probably way too sweet and cheesy for most of you out there, but in my opinion, it needs to be recommended once again. That was from Finland, which is also the name of the game with one of the best black metal albums of the year called Kryptamok. That is the band name, with an album called Verisaarna. And this is the debut album of this great new black metal band from Finland. New as such, being a debut album, although this band has been there for a few years. And a couple of years ago they did this great demo tape or MCD, MLP later on, which is something that captures very much kind of a Horna feeling, but also very much this kind of a modern day Finnish black metal, tapping in so many ways, maybe having slight things coming from Norway, and just putting the pieces in the right way, in the right order, and nice production. Definitely an interesting album you should be checking out. I said it again, sorry. And also one of the best black metal albums comes from United States of America with a band called Häxanu, Snare of Old Salvation. To be honest, I don't know the mastermind of the band, but people were saying, basically everything he does, this guy in the band, is just pretty much golden or gold standard, and I think, well, I could, you know, believe that based on Snare of Old Salvation, because this is melodic, fast tempo, kind of a raw, and a little bit kind of a melancholic album as well. So it's kind of a multifaceted album with so many different angles, making it very nice and enjoyable album to listen to. Definitely one of the best albums of the year. And now the album of the year contender number 1 would be an actual mini release, and this kind of surprised me totally as well. I mean, it's only basically 2 main guys who are veterans of Greek black metal all the way from basically 80s. And these guys have a lot of past with Verisaarna, Rotting Christ, and so forth. And now you're wondering, so what is this band? It's called Yoth Iria. Under His Sway is the name of this mini release. And this is something that takes me back to the times like Non Serviam by Rotting Christ, the early 1990s black metal stuff these guys were doing. One of the first ones for me in the mid-90s was actually, you know, the 2 first Rotting Christ albums. I don't know why I got to know Greek black metal along the same way as these Norwegian classics, but hey, that's how it was back in then. You didn't really know what to get, so you were just exploring names. And Rotting Christ sounds really badass. Anyway, so it's been a long time since these guys left the band, and they have been on their other ventures and all that stuff. So when they came back with this kind of new band, with a name that doesn't really sound like anything, Yoth Iria, it's not exactly Suffocation or Morbid Angel or Slayer, Death, but just some name, man. And then they're like, okay, I'll give it a shot. These guys, well, actually one of the other guys of the band contacted me and said like, hey, I would like to send this for review. And I'm like, sure. I'm not the guy who says no to reviewable albums that easily. So I put it in my player and I was like, okay, this is good. A couple of spins later, I was like, no, this is better than good. A couple of spins later, I'm like, shit, this is going to be the one of the best releases of the year. And I still am thinking about that. Very Greek sounding. So if you're allergic to Greek one, well, my words don't mean crap. But then again, if you just happen to be a fan of Greek black metal, especially the 1990s style, well, this is a treat for you, my friend. Now, this is all the list. Quite a few albums, actually, way more. So this is a lengthier video than I would ever expect. But hey, you asked for it, and now you have it. I tried to include all the links for this video in the description box, so you can just click and see those reviews. And in case you just don't feel like doing that, well, you don't have to. Anyway, if you have some suggestions, some recommendations, some comments or questions, put them on the comment box below and I'll get back to you. Now, off to other videos and game streaming. See ya and bye bye.